Hola, ¿cómo están ustedes? Es el Maestro Minelli. So glad you could join our growing YouTube channel, Learning Spanish with Maestro Minelli. Today's video is going to focus on a point of grammar that is actually quite exciting. It's the difference between an adjective and an adverb. Now, adjectives and adverbs add a dimension to any sentence in which they're included because they modify words, they add detail, they provide context. For example, an adjective is a word that would modify a person, place, thing, or idea. So it would modify the subject of the sentence, it would modify a noun, it would modify something of that nature. So an adjective could be like tall or short, a color of the rainbow, green, pink, orange, red, blue, etc. Whereas an adverb has three opportunities to contribute. An adverb is most likely going to modify a verb. An adverb can also modify an adjective, or an adverb can also modify another adverb. So three roles of an adverb: it can modify a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. So we'll do some examples in Español de los adjetivos, and again, it's like a cognate, adjetivo. Adjectives. Adverbios. Adverbs. So, algunos adjetivos son alto, bajo. Alto for tall, bajo for short. I remember when I was a graduate student at Stanford University, they talked about how Stanford was located in Palo Alto, California. Palo Alto, the tall tree. In fact, I believe the Stanford Cardinal, they still have a mascot who runs around in a tree suit at the basketball games. El Palo Alto. So, but if he was that tall, he would actually be playing for the basketball team. That's what I always say. So, alto, tall, bajo, short. You could also use adjectives to describe colors. Por ejemplo, azul for blue, morado for purple, rojo for red, anaranjado for orange, amarillo for yellow, blanco for white, negro for black, gris for gray. I always love that word, gris. I think of Olivia Newton-John and John Travolta from that famous 1978 movie, Grease. Oh, no, wait. That's Grease in English. But the word gris in Espanol, it sounds like the word grease in English. So, gris, whatever works for your sense of memory recall. Gris is gray. Let's see, some other colors that you might come up to might be, there are actually many different ways to say pink. One of the ways would be like rosada, rosita. I know when I taught in the California public schools, many of my students were either Americans that were born to Mexican-American parents, or in some cases American students who were born to Mexican parents, but a lot of students had Mexican-American heritage, let's say. And, some from other cultures as well, but Mexico was the primary contributor in terms of culture from, Latin America, Latino America, para los hispanohablantes. And I remember so many students would call pink so many different things. Rosita, rosada, todo esto. So I've just learned that there are many different ways to say pink. Verde would be green. So you could talk about colors. You could also say that there are certain conditions. Like, for example, it's a snowy day. Es un día nevado. In fact, the state of Nevada, I believe, comes from the word for snowy. Because if you say, oh, la montaña Nevada, like the mountain that has the snowy mountain, la montaña Nevada. So I believe Nevada comes from the word for snowy because there are certainly certain places in Nevada where there are snow peaks, and there are, up at Lake Tahoe for sure. You can find all different seasons of the year in the Lake Tahoe region. So also Colorado, the state of Colorado. Colorado is an adjective that could mean colorful. La pintura colorada, o el foto, o la foto colorado. I have to look that up in terms of where Colorado gets its name from, but it's the same as the word for colorful. So, el dibujo colorado, la pintura colorada. So you could use adjectives in that way in Spanish. Adverbs are interesting because when someone asks you in Spanish, ¿Cómo estás? Like, how are you? The how is really driving an adverb response. So you say, I'm doing very well. Oh, estoy bien. Estoy muy bien. So if someone says, ¿Cómo estás? And then you say, oh, estoy bien, that means I am doing well. So how you are doing, so well would modify how you're doing. So in that case, well, like bien, would modify ¿Cómo estás? Estoy bien. So bien would modify estoy. But if you say, ¿Cómo estás? And then your friend says, oh, estoy muy bien. If they say muy bien, then bien modifies estoy, and muy modifies bien. So in other words, muy would be an adverb modifying another adverb. Like, I'm not just doing well, I'm doing very well. And you could say, for example, like to modify an adjective, you could say, la tortuga camina lentamente. The turtle walks slowly. In that case, slowly would be an adverb modifying how the turtle walks, so modifying a verb. But if you say, oh, la tortuga está caminando en una manera tan lenta would be like rather slow, like almost like so slowly, like, hey, turtle, speed it up. So if you say, en una manera tan lenta would be slow for manera, so the manner in which the turtle is walking. So lenta would be slow, and if you say tan lenta, en una manera tan lenta, the tan would be rather slow. So that would be the adverb modifying an adjective in that case. So adverbs, los adverbios, como si escuchas lentamente, rápidamente, fácilmente. If you hear mente at the end of a multisyllabic word, now if you just hear the word mente, M-E-N-T-E, mente in Espanol, that could mean the word for mind. That's one of the ways to say mind. Oh, el pensamiento está en mi mente. Like, oh, the thought is in my mind. But if you have a multisyllabic word that ends with mente, that's most likely an adverb. Lentamente, slowly. Rápidamente, quickly. Peligrosamente, dangerously, So adverbs modify verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs. And adjectives modify people, places, things, ideas, also known as nouns, also, subjects of sentences. Entonces, vamos a estudiar más sobre los adjetivos y los adverbios con los videos que vienen. Like in future videos, we will do definitely more in-depth work on adjectives and adverbs. Thank you for watching this video and being a part of our growing YouTube community. Please feel free to like this video and subscribe to our growing YouTube channel where we learn Spanish with Maestro Minelli. Gracias.